Welcome to the Warfare Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Lane Lawson Craft. Join us here every other Monday. Now, let's get into today's podcast. Welcome to the Warfare Parenting Podcast. Today, we are talking about a subject that is not very pleasant or comfortable to talk about. It's sexual assault. Really, we're talking about rape. And today, I have a wonderful friend and a licensed counselor, Susan Milligan. How are you?
I'm great, Lane. Thanks for having me.
Well, this is just exciting because I knew you would bring some insights to us. I'm just going to start out right here. These are some statistics that made me critically sick. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. Mm-hmm. And I'm uncomfortable myself because when we talk about these traumas, that's what they are, right, Susan? These are
absolutely
traumatic events. Mm-hmm. They can steal someone's life from the beginning. I'm going to give you some stats right here. Did you know that Americans are sexually assaulted every 93 seconds?
Wow.
So look at your watch, time out 93 seconds, which is just a little bit over a minute and a half. And there is someone that is sexually assaulted. Every 9 minutes, Child protective people, they say they find evidence for claims of sexual abuse every 9 minutes. 34% under the age of 12 and 66% of the age of 12 to 17 are when these child rapes happen. So listen to that again. 34% are under the age of 12 when they are sexually assaulted.
That's tragic, Lane.
It's tragic. So I'm going to keep going because then we can come in here. 82% of all victims that are under the age of 18 are female. Mm-hmm. I don't want to exclude boys and men because that is true to them too. Normally, their assaults are from under the age of 10, Susan. Mm-hmm. This is incredible. So, we're looking at this, Susan, because this episode is all about sexual assault. What are they? I mean, what are they? And we're sitting here looking, who is this about? And these are teens and young adults. Mm-hmm. So I want to say here too, it says adolescents aged 14 to 17 were by far the most likely to be sexually victimized. Nearly 1 in 6 was sexually victimized in the past year. I mean, these are current numbers. This is rampant every 9 minutes and every 93 seconds, Susan. Yes. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, unfortunately, I see some of these people come into my office and they're right where you say they are with the statistics. Most of my male clients that have been sexually assaulted or molested or raped, the event has usually happened under the age of 10. And it's just tragic. And I've seen that type of abuse ruin people's lives until they come through the doors and seek treatment. So you're talking about years and years and years that are lost. As for women, the ages just range from, unfortunately, I have a client who was molested at 2 weeks old. And then I have people who were rape victims all throughout the age cycle. So it's tragic, Lane, and what it does to people and how it impacts their life is just heart-wrenching. But there is hope for these people. And that's the one thing I want to bring to the table is these statistics are very, very gut-wrenching, and they're hard for all of us to hear. But then there are statistics that we could share about people who take the risk and are brave enough to say, I need help. Right. And so that is also there as well. But we want to, because this is a parenting podcast, to make parents aware of these horrific statistics. And you have to be vigilant in this day and time and protect your children. There's just no doubt about that.
Right. And so that leads us right into this next segment. Who does this? Who are doing these things? So relatives, teachers, religious leaders, former spouses. Unfortunately, the list of possible attackers of your child are people who are very most often intimate with the relationship of this victim.
Mhm.
Statistics on rape indicate that this connection normally results in most rape victims shying away from reporting it due to this emotional connection with these people.
Exactly. First and foremost, most victims are in a state of shock. They've probably been groomed and told not to say anything. They've been told it will ruin the family. It will ruin whatever. If it's a religious institution, it will ruin the religious institution. They may even use God. There's a lot of grooming, a lot of talking to these victims. Um, and they believe what they say because these are people they trusted and they thought were for them and loved them.
Well,
And so it's very sad. That's part of the story and part of the unraveling that we do in counseling.
well, and let me just give you this statistic, and it's from 2019, so pretty current. It says 93.98%. So let's just say 94% of child victims in the United States were familiar with their attacker.
Mhm.
In almost all of these cases, as reflected by teenage sexual assault statistics, the child had spent a significant amount of time, 10 plus hours, with their attacker prior to the sexual assault, Susan.
Yes, and that does not surprise me one bit. The grooming process probably took place in those 10 hours. And when I say grooming, what I mean by that is they desensitize their victim. They make their victim feel comfortable. They may do a few things that are inappropriate, kind of test them out, see how they feel about it. The one thing that really alarms me is that those are 2019 statistics. Let's think about what happened during the pandemic when all of our children were forced out of the safe place, which may have been school, and were forced to go home to the places where they may have been prey to be attacked. And so I think about once 2020, 2021 statistics come out, they're going to blow our minds. And I mean, it is a pandemic in itself, the sexual molestation and rape and abuse that goes on with our children in this country and around the world.
And so this is one of the, passions of the Warfare Parenting podcast is we are bringing attention to these incredible assaults to our teens and young adults, whether it be drugs, alcohol, here we are with sexual assaults. I mean, this should alarm all of us.
Absolutely.
Really, shouldn't it?
Well, it should also, from a spiritual standpoint, help us understand that the enemy is after our children. He's after our future. He's after family. If you think about what all that you've said, is familiar people are attacking our children. So who attacked those perpetrators? They probably were attacked themselves because the statistics show that perpetrators have been hurt themselves. And the cycle just continues. The generational sin, the generational bondage, whatever you want to call it. And so bringing awareness to it, helping parents understand that your child is not safe, not even with the people you think they're safe. You need to vet every person.
Amen. So listen, I want to kind of shift because we are now going to talk about date rape, teen dating. So right here, it says that over 71% of women and over 55% of men first experience intimate partner violence under the age of 25. 1 in 4 women first experience an intimate partner violence prior to the age of 18, Susan. 1 in 4 women have had some horrible experience. It says over 80% of women and over 70% of male victims, they had been attempted rape by these people. Are you hearing me? Under the age of 25.
Right.
So, I want to say this. Youth who experience sexual violence as children or teens are more likely to experience sexual violence in adulthood. Susan, that's something you talk about, that tragedy here is that these children that are molested or sexually assaulted under the age of 25, and listen, I don't care what you say, under the age of 25 is a child to me.
Yes. Well, their frontal lobes are not fully developed in their brain, so therefore they cannot reason like you and I can sit here and reason things out. Under 25 and under, you do not have a fully developed brain. So they are very susceptible to being, preyed upon. And you're absolutely right. In the counseling world, we call it a trauma bond. When somebody is assaulted at a young age, they are susceptible to these types of attacks as they grow older. So you will not, it's not unusual for a person who's been molested as a child to have been attacked 2 to 3 times. I've seen multiple cases of that come through my office. So it is very, very unfortunate. But again, it can be healed. I just want to always say, parents, the best thing though is preventative care. Take care of your kids, educate your kids, vet everybody so they don't end up being one of these statistics. But if they are, don't lose hope, because there are so many amazing things that can be done to help heal the trauma that's in their brain.
Well, and Susan, I do want to talk about after this horrific event happens, what happens. And it says the effects of child sexual abuse can be long lasting and affect the victim's mental health. Victims are more likely than non-victims to experience these following things: about 4 times more likely to develop symptoms of drug abuse, 4 times more likely to experience PTSD as adults, 3 times more likely to experience a major depressive episode as adults.
Yes.
You touch on that. You see this. This is who you counsel, correct?
Yes, that's exactly who I see. And those statistics, I just have to tell you, I think that they're probably low. I don't think everybody reports these abuses that they have. And then there are so many victims that will never come forward and admit what they're going through. And as counselors, I don't know how we can't provide that information. So I think those statistics are quite low.
Well,
but yes.
And I think a lot of it too, Susan, is let's go back to, over 75% of these are done by someone we know. And so immediately that child is going to be, whether it was a grandparent or a neighbor.
An aunt, an uncle, they just don't know how to process or think about that.
Well, listen, the next part of this is we want to go through some signs that might give a parent today or a loved one or a grandparent. It might make some sense to some of them now why their teen and young adult may be acting in the way they are. It says you can learn to recognize the warning signs that a teen has been sexually assaulted or abused by some of these: unusual weight gain or weight loss, unhealthy eating patterns, signs of physical abuse, such as bruises, sexually transmitted diseases, signs of depression, persistent sadness, lack of energy, anxiety or worry, failing grades, Susan, self-harming behavior.
Yes.
So these are some really big signs that maybe give a parent, loved one, grandparent, aunt, uncle, signs that maybe this teen or young adult is suffering from a sexual assault.
Absolutely. And that's what I tell parents: don't ignore the signs. If you see something in your child's behavior that is unusual, and they couldn't just go on and on those symptoms, ask them. If they don't want to talk to you, seek help. Don't be embarrassed. Contact a counselor. Let them talk to them. And start that process of healing. The earlier that you can catch the signs and get the healing, the less that trauma bond will keep repeating itself and going on and on into their adulthood.
Well, I just want to encourage parents today of teens and young adults that could maybe conceive that their child had been a victim of sexual assault. You do want to keep the communication lines open.
Yes.
You might just say, listen, I've noticed that you're doing this. I love that. First and foremost, you can take them to the primary care doctor, because maybe it is an STD and you don't even know, they don't even know. I love the fact that we probably need to just get to a physical, a doctor that can do a physical and just say, it's not anything underlying. Hey, I found this, which could open the door to the communication that, how did you get this? Tell us more. as you have said, Susan, there is hope for all of this. In the third episode, we will talk about resources and things we can do. Is there anything you would like to say lasting for us about just overall, generally about, sexual assaults to our children, our teens and young adults, and date rape? Is there anything that you would like to impart?
Well, I would say educate your kids, especially your young girls, before they go off to college. I don't think that we understand the cesspool that we're actually allowing our children to enter into in the college realm. There's no parental guidance. There's no boundaries at college. And so kids are really, in many ways, they're just discovering who they are and enjoying their freedoms, but also the ones that are hurt or the ones that are perpetrators, they're also using that time to create more victims. So I would just encourage parents to be alert. Don't put your head in the sand when it comes to this topic. This is just one that as a parent, you won't bear it when you discover it. It'll just be so heart-wrenching. So do what you can to prevent. I know we don't want to educate our children way too young, but there are books and resources that can help you, educate and train a child that there are parts of their body that are never to be touched by anybody. And so I just love, Lane, that you're just bringing, awareness to this topic, because like I said, what would make me so happy is preventing it so that people don't end up in my office and we don't end up having to talk about this stuff. But if they do, like you said, we'll offer some hope and resources in the next segment.
Well, and from a personal standpoint, Susan, I'm just going to share to the world that, when my children were small, I showed them privates. I said, these are your privates, whether it was my two sons or my daughter. And I did my best to just keep it very innocent, like you say, pure. We don't want to bombard these children, with all of this sex stuff way before their little minds can handle it. But you can just say, these are your privates, no one to touch them. In my personal experience, even with all the prevention, with all the talking, that did not keep our family from having this. So if you're a parent or grandparent and you do find out about it, please don't carry that shame or guilt for yourself, because listen, Susan said it perfectly. The enemy is out to seek, kill, and destroy our children. If it's not through the drugs and alcohol, he is desperately trying to, just kill and destroy our children through sexual assaults, because those are long-term. But as Susan says, with the right counseling and with the right steps, there is hope for complete healing. Right, Susan?
Absolutely. I'm witness to it. I was sexually assaulted as a young girl, and the reason that I become a counselor is because I found that hope, and now I just want to spread it.
Amen. Well, thank you again, Susan, for being here. I know many people now have more insight to how serious this issue is, how our children are under attack, our young children, our teens and young adults, through sexual assaults. And thank you for your bravery and your wisdom today.
Thanks so much, Lane, for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Warfare Parenting. I hope you found some encouragement or helpful info today to help you on your journey. If you have a specific topic you'd like for me to talk about or a guest you'd like for me to have on the show, please feel free to send me a message on Instagram or Facebook. Listen, I love connecting with you, and so I've made it really easy for us to stay connected. Text Hi Lane to 55444. That's HILAINE to 55444. Also, be sure to follow the podcast so you never miss an episode, and leave me a rate and review. I would be so grateful. I'll see you next week.